Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. Check, check, mic check. If everybody can hear me, please put a 1 in the chat. I'd appreciate that very, 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 very much. If you can hear me, put a 1 in the chat, please. All praises, all praises. Shabbat shalom, Sister Brown. Good to see you. Hope and pray all is well with you and the family down in Houston. All right. Okay. Just making sure we got just making sure we organize here, making sure everybody can see me. You know what? Can you set this up? We're gonna use the light. Just making sure stand this up right behind there. Just make sure we organize here, making sure everybody can see it. You might just have to move on. All right, everybody just give us a second. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Trying to make sure things is in order. Shabbat shalom, Byron. Shabbat shalom. All right. Give us 1 second. Get some help right there. Yeah. You know, push that. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of come out at the same time. See? And then that. No, that's good. I got it plugged up. Oh, okay. Is that what y'all call a light skin pick right there? Ah, now you want to leave. I've been talking that light skin, dark skin pick for months now.
That's them. It's not me.
It's not you?
No.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
They're always like, you're taking a light skin pic. And I was like, it's a regular picture. No, see, you're in the light. That don't matter.
Some more made up pop culture, ain't it? Okay. I appreciate everybody being with us this morning. Give me 1 second. 1 second, and we're gonna get started. Okay. All right. All right, all praises. Yeah, shalom, sis. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, all right. All right. Looks like we got some light. Look like we got some audio. Praises. Praises. Okay. All right. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. I'm Captain Shazael, all right, with Kingdom of Israel, United Worldwide. Thank y'all for joining us on our Shabbat lesson this morning. Some of you may know, if you have seen the title of the class, what the subject's going to be about. Some of you may not know. And if you don't know or you do know, it don't matter, because you're going to know. All right. I got one of my young lions, Kino RIA. reading for me today, and some beautiful Israelite women with me today. Shabbat shalom, ladies. And the title today, the lesson today, is Can Israelite Women Be Concubines to Israelite Men? All right. Now, here we go with another controversial topic that, you know what I mean? That's just always, I'm always on the edge with things. You know what I mean? I gotta, when it comes across my desk, Israel, I'm gonna bring it to you. And this topic came across my desk, of course, through good old Facebook. And right, and you start to see some of these doctrines, and you start to listen to some of your brothers that are in the truth, right? I'm not saying no names, but in the truth, and they have these understandings. I think I'm gonna use that word. They have these understandings that everybody doesn't have. And a lot of times it's very few of them with the same understanding. And they seem to get these understandings from each other, which isn't biblical. And if they don't get it from each other, they get it from themselves, which is off. Okay. I'll say what I want to share with everybody is to make sure everybody understands here at Kingdom of Israel. What we don't do is we don't take one scripture with no precepts, okay, no line upon line, and create a whole doctrine out of one scripture. That's what the Christians do with John 3:16, right? They read John 3:16, they close the book, and somebody starts to scream and holler, and then all of a sudden God love everybody. But you didn't read John 3:14. Where's your precept to prove that? You don't have that. This is what we don't do here at Kingdom of Israel. And me and the brothers have talked about that. Me and leadership, they're wonderful about that. We're wonderful, and I give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I give all glory and honor to the Most High for sending me these brothers, because they do understand it. The brothers that He has me in this war with and fighting side by side with. I love you brothers, and I appreciate you brothers not doing that and having the spirit to not do that. Well, unfortunately, a lot of Israel does not have the spirit of that. They don't understand that. They don't get that, because a lot of us are leaning on our own understanding. All right. And the Israelite concubine doctrine, it's just not biblical. Now, it is lawful for an Israelite man to take on concubines. Okay, it is lawful, but we're the conquered people. And when you start talking about concubines, those are heathen women from other nations that have actually been conquered. Those are the concubines that you tend to end up taking on. Okay. Now, my question to all of that is, what nations have we conquered today? Who has Israel conquered? Who are we conquered? Who did we conquer to be in rulership right now? Okay, because this Israelite man can take on an Israelite woman as a concubine is actually an excuse to just not take on marital responsibilities and to turn on women back into baby mamas and not a wife. Okay, that's really what it is. And, you know, my thing is, haven't we seen enough of that? I mean, haven't we done that enough already in the world? Now you want to do that in the truth with this doctrine. What we're going to prove today is that concubines were actually conquered people. I'm going to say it again. Concubines were actually conquered people. And so how are you going to have concubines in the land of your captivity, where you are the conquered people? It just don't make no damn sense. It don't make no damn sense at all. Look, now here's my thing. I don't know. I don't know if you Negroes are bored. I don't know, or if you just hate the so-called black woman so much that you have to try and convince them that they have to be less than wives. You know, I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know that it is time for your level of understanding to elevate. All right. And even when you look at history and you look at the so-called white man or Esau and what they did to our women through slavery, they raped them, they had children with them, and they threw them back in the field to go back to work. Or they sold them to another Edomite or another so-called white man. These are the understandings that our nation has to get when repairing itself, because that's where we are as a nation. We're in the process of repairing ourselves. And strong families equal strong communities, and strong communities equal power. All right. Shabbat Shalom, Officer Emmanuel. Yahabashem Yashar Barakatah. And we have to get our power back, and we got to start with our families. We got to start with marriage, and we got to start with our relationships, not by creating a doctrine that turn our women into sex slaves. All right. And that's what we got to understand, because some of you Negroes is bugged out of your minds, and we got to shut that down. All right. Somebody got to stand up to the evil. Let's get 1 Timothy 4:1. All right. That's the first scripture we're going to get. 1 Timothy 4:1. All right, go ahead and bring that up.
Okay. This is the book. Okay, Con. This is the book of 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times.
That in what?
The latter times.
In the latter times, meaning the times that we're in right now. Read on.
Some shall depart from the faith.
Some shall what?
Depart from the faith.
Read on.
Giving heed to seducing spirits.
Seducing spirits, come on.
And doctrines of devils.
And what?
Doctrines of devils.
And doctrines of devils. So that's what we're dealing with here, is doctrines of devils. And when you know what the meaning of the word devil is, just means a deceiver, a liar. Read on.
Speaking lies and hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
Having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
Meaning that you can't tell them nothing. Can't teach them nothing. Nobody can teach them nothing. They know it already. All right, read on.
Forbidding to marry.
What?
Forbidding to marry.
Read that again.
Forbidding to marry.
Forbidding to marry. See, that's what this is. This doctrine is a doctrine to forbid to marry. So they'll be like, oh, well, I ain't getting married. I'll just have concubines. That's where this is coming from. Read on.
And commanding to abstain from meats, which Elohim hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth.
Of them that what?
Of them which believe.
Well, of them that believe
and know the truth.
And know the truth. There's a difference between those of us that believe and know the truth and those of us that are giving heed to seducing doctrines of devils. There's a difference. All right. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 30. Let's get a law real quick. All right, bring that up.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 30.
Okay, now when we start reading in the book of Deuteronomy, if this is your first time joining us, Shabbat Shalom, Officer Brad, Yahabashem Yashar Barakatah. When we start reading in the book of Deuteronomy, in the 28th chapter, you start to read about the curses that the Israelites fell under, that we are under today. Okay, this is one of those curses for not being obedient to the Most High. Read what you got.
Thou shalt betroth a wife.
Site where you're at again?
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife.
Thou shalt betroth a wife, meaning you shall be promised to a woman. Read.
And another man shall lie with her.
And another man shall what?
Lie with her.
So another man's going to have sex with your woman. All right, read on.
Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. See, we know the so-called white man did this through slavery. We know that they did this to us, our people, so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, Native Indians of Seminole and Negro descent, who are the true children of Israel today. We went through this through slavery, okay? And we know the so-called Arabs did it through the trans-Sahara slave trade, where over 1 million Jews died crossing the Sahara Desert. And they put our women in the harems, okay? These are all curses that our people will go under.
All right. Let's get Deuteronomy 23 and 17.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verse 17.
Pay attention. Listen good, Israel.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel.
Read that again.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel.
Read it again.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel. Read.
Nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel.
Nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. So if this is a law given to the Israelites, given to the women, specifically the women and men, pertaining to how you conduct yourself in sexual relations, how do you allow yourself to even think that you can turn a daughter of Zion into a whore or a sex slave? How does that make sense? How does that make sense pertaining to the law of the Most High? I'll let you think on that one. I'll give you time on that one. Let's get Matthew 12 and 36. Let's see what the Messiah had to say about some of these topics of contention. All right, go ahead, bring that up.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 36. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak.
Every idle word that men shall speak, read.
They shall give account thereof in the day of judgment.
They shall what?
Give account thereof in the day of judgment.
Read.
For by the words thou shalt be justified.
So by your words, you're going to be justified. Read.
And by thy words thou shalt be condemned.
And by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Y'all understand that? So you need to watch your mouth when you're creating these doctrines. All of you. You need to watch your mouths when you're creating these doctrines, because you're putting yourself in a position to be judged and condemned. All right? Make it very clear and straightforward. I got to shoot straight here when it comes down to these doctrines, okay? Let's get Leviticus 19 and 17. All right, go ahead.
This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him.
And not what?
Suffer sin upon him.
We're not supposed to suffer sin upon our neighbors. Read on.
Verse 18, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh.
Listen, we hate our people so much, and I mean so much, that instead of showing our women they should be wives, we tell them that they're going to be concubines and whores. And that's directly against Torah, against the law. See, that's bearing a grudge against the children of our people. And you know what I realized, that in having some of these dialogues regarding this topic, that a lot of our men talk real tough and harsh to the women. But what they really are grass-eating lions. I want y'all to soak that up. Grass-eating lions. That's what they are. Okay, you're consuming what was meant for animals instead of you. You know, we're supposed to eat the meat of the scriptures. Okay, the meat of the words of the Most High. You're literally eating things and teaching things that got nothing to do with our nation. Literally. But what do y'all want? Y'all want leaves and weeds, not the meat. Okay, that's what y'all want. And none of these doctrines were meant for our people. All right, there's so many of them. We're just dealing with this one. Okay, this so-called Israelite women doctrine. So-called Israelite women can be concubines to Israelite men doctrine. That's what we're dealing with today. Let's get Hosea 4 and 1. All right, go ahead.
This is the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 1. Hear the word of Yahweh, ye children of Israel. For Yahweh hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, no mercy.
No what?
No truth.
There's no truth.
Nor mercy.
No mercy.
Nor knowledge of Elohim in the land.
There's no truth, no mercy, and no knowledge, understanding of the Most High in the land. And this is why the Most High had a problem with Israel, because we're supposed to be the ones to lead. We're supposed to be the ones to lead. Let's get Isaiah 1 and 4. Go ahead.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 4. A sinful nation.
A what?
A sinful nation.
A sinful nation. Read.
A people laden with iniquity.
Laden with iniquity. Laden with sin. Sin upon sin upon sin. Read.
A seed of evildoers.
Children
that are corrupters.
Children that are corrupters. That's what's going on. We're corrupting the sanctity of marriage with teaching these doctrines. Read.
They have forsaken Yahweh. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backwards.
They're gone away what?
Backwards.
They're gone away backwards. That's what's wrong with our people. They've gone away backwards. And see, if it's not the angel sex doctrine, it's the pedophile doctrine. If it's not God love everybody, it's the women can't get into the kingdom without the husband doctrine. If it ain't eating meat is a sin doctrine, it's the home of the truth doctrine. If it ain't the Lilith doctrine, it's the I can beat my wife's ass doctrine. Okay? Gone away backwards. That's our people. And this society is finished. Okay? And we got to start over. We got to start over, because everything that we've learned through this society and what we were taught in this society has nothing to do with righteousness. Nothing to do with the Most High Yah of Israel. Nothing to do with Yahweh's law. It has to do with doctrines of men. Okay? Because we can't start over with our women, our children, and our daughters and our mothers thinking they're not supposed to be wives to the royal priesthood of Israel. And see, here's, and I'm going to share with you the scripture that was presented to me to justify Israelite men taking on Israelite women for concubines. Okay, this is what was presented. Let's go to Judges. Judges 19. Okay, because there's always the scripture that you can go to for all of these doctrines that you start off. You point at one scripture and you say, okay, look, there it is. And then you close the book. I mean, you sound like Pastor Porkchop and Deacon Crab Cake. John 3:16, there it is. I mean, are we just gonna come out of Christianity and call ourselves Israelites, but are really still following Christianity? I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand my people. Okay, I just don't understand my people. Judges 19. And we're gonna start at verse 10.
This is the book of Judges, chapter 19, verse 10. But the man would not tarry that night, but he rose up and departed and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem. And there were with him 2 asses saddled. His concubine also was with him.
What verse you on?
11, man.
Okay, go ahead. Wait. Okay, yeah, you good. Go ahead. I'm on the wrong chapter.
Verse 11. And when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said unto his master, come, I pray thee, and let us turn into this city of the Jebusites, and lodge in it.
Go ahead.
And his master said unto him, we will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger. That is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah or Gibeah. Verse 13. And he said unto his servant, come and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or in Ramah.
Okay, so here you see in verse 10, you see the that by night they departed, and two of the donkeys had one of his concubines with him. And the teaching is where they were from and what the concubine job was. Now, my question was she an Israelite? And if she was, how do you prove that? Where does it say that? Are we assuming based on one scripture? Okay, because there's no example of Israelite men taking on Israelite women as concubines. But we do have conquered women all through the scriptures being taken as concubines by men of other nations. Okay, now I'm going to get some extra biblical sources on history that kind of lines up with scripture. Let's show y'all something real quick. And let me share my screen real quick. Okay. And if you all haven't done it yet, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. And let's get a little edification on this, shall we? Okay. Just sharing my screen. I appreciate everyone's patience. Just waiting for the article to come up. Make sure I shouted everybody out. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, Sister D. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, sis. Okay. Shabbat Shalom to Nava, who is here. Okay. Give me a second. And everybody let me know when this comes up if you can pull this up, if you guys can see the page. Let's see. There we go. You can't see the page, can you? No, can you see it? Oh, okay. Can you see it? Can you see my screen for concubinage? Oh, you're not looking at the yeah. Can you see it? Did it come up? It's not coming up yet. Okay. Okay. Maybe it's just slow on my end. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it was slow on my end. Okay. All right. Okay. So
I can see it. You
can see it came up, right? It was just slow. Okay. The term concubinage is a Latin term. Okay. The institution in ancient Rome that regarded the cohabitation of free citizens who did not want to enter into marriage, similar to modern day civil unions. From this traditional meaning found in Roman law comes contemporary usage of concubinage as a synonym for civil union. Used in legal context, in some countries such as France, concubinage is the official name given by law to civil unions. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. Concubinage has existed in all cultures. Okay, so when you read about concubines in the Bible, it doesn't just start with Israel. It existed in all cultures. Okay, through the prevalence of concubinage and the rights and expectations of the persons involved have varied somewhat, and have the rights of the offspring born from such relationships. A relationship of concubinage can take place voluntarily due to the lack of parties involved to enter into full marriage, or involuntary, example, slavery in slave-owning societies. Most concubines were slaves, and they were often called slave concubines. Such concubinage was practiced in patriarchal cultures throughout history. Isn't anything new? Okay. Whatever the status and rights of the person involved, they always were inferior to those of a legitimate spouse. So that, what does that mean? That means that the concubines never had the same rights as the actual spouse, the actual wife. Okay. And typically the rights of inheritance are limited and excluded. In the past, the woman involved in concubinage was referred to as a concubine, while the man simply as the lover or patron. He wasn't described as typically the husband. He was described simply as the lover or the patron. Depending upon the concubine, typically refers to her as a sex slave or a mistress. So even when we go to some of our thoughts and some of our heathen pastimes throughout history, you'll read about concubines actually being slaves, not actually being, and typically those slaves were not of the same people. Okay, I'm going to bring up the last article. And everybody just kind of be patient with me. I realize the internet's kind of slow on this side, on this computer. Shabbat Shalom, Sandra Pena. Shabbat Shalom. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Can you see it now? Can you see the Secret Life? Did that one come up? Yeah. Can't see it. I mean, did it change screens? Because I can't jump off. Well, let me see. I just want to make sure. Okay. Yeah, just a little bit behind. That's all. Yeah. It's going to come up. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody's with me. I don't want to move too fast for that to kind of catch up. Yeah, again, I apologize. I got a little bit of a slow connection on my computer. So one's caught up and one's not. I appreciate everybody's patience. I'm just gonna wait for this article to come up. This is just an article on the secret life of ancient concubines, and these things can be cross-referenced and checked throughout history. This isn't anything that that we couldn't search or find out. Let me share my screen again. That kicked off. Okay, that kicked off. Give me 1 second, family. All right. Good. Come on. There we go. There we go. There we go. Is that somebody's phone? Okay. Make sure I mute my there we go. Okay. So should come up in 1 second. Shabbat Shalom, sweetheart. My daughter on here with a weird looking name.
It's called that's a yeah, bro. Yeah.
That's what she said. Okay.
That's a yeah.
Yeah. All right, let me try to leave this up. Let me see if it's going to pop up for me so I can share this little bit of information. How did I know? Your brother's sitting right here with me, so there's not really a reason that we're not going to figure that out. Okay, I'm going to start reading the article, and hopefully, most high willing, it'll catch up so you guys can see it. There we go. Okay. Okay. In many ancient cultures and religious traditions, rulers and elite members of society not only had wives, they also had concubines. Concubines normally served as a dual purpose: to increase a man's prestige through his capacity to produce children, and of course, limitless opportunities to indulge in sexual desires. So it wasn't about really giving them an inheritance, companionship, nothing. It was pretty much about sex and children. Most people associate concubines with ancient China, where emperors were known to have kept thousands of concubines. However, the practice of taking concubines is certainly not exclusive to China. All right. The practice of taking a concubine goes back thousands of years to the civilization of ancient Mesopotamia and Babylonia, where the elite members of society took concubines, many of whom were slaves. However, the first wife always retained a place of primacy in the family. In some city-states, women served as priestesses and held a very high social rank. Generally, those women did not marry. In some Mesopotamian cultures, men would visit these women as prostitutes, which socially not only condoned, but considered an honorable fulfillment of religious duty, regardless of the marital status of the man. So if these women, who are described as concubines, were visited as prostitutes, our law says that there's not supposed to be a whore among the daughters of Zion. Okay, so that's directly against our law. So if it's against our law, then why would our men practice our women being concubines in the scriptures? That doesn't make sense. When we're in rulership, why would our men practice that when that's part of the law, when Israel was in rulership? Now, when we weren't in rulership, that's different. Okay, now I'm going to continue on to the last paragraph. Concubines appeared in the Bible as well. The Israelites often kept concubines in addition to their wives. Wives had dowries, but concubines did not. And this was the chief method of distinguishing between the two social positions. One of the most famous keepers of concubines, who can take a guess who that is in the Bible? There he is. In the Bible was King Solomon, who was said to have 300 concubines, in addition to his 700 wives. Boy, Solomon, he's something else. While concubinage is not acceptable in Christianity today, some Bible commentators have suggested that God allowed men more than one wife and several concubines during the period of the Great Flood to build up the world's population. So essentially, the whole point of having concubines was to grow children and to have sexual desires. That was it. There really wasn't any other purpose of having concubines. Okay, let me fix the screen real quick. Make sure. No, there's only one. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So, you know, the point of reading those articles was for you to kind of understand that it wasn't just Israelite history that you read about concubines. It was actually a common practice through all kinds of cultures, and they were not the same nation. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and prove that. Okay, let's get back into the scriptures. Let's go to 2 Samuel 5 and 12. 2 Samuel 5 and 12. And I'm gonna suggest, Israel, if you are new here to the channel or to the class, check out the past classes that we had this week. Excellent teachings by Second Officer Will, Second Officer Abraham Yasharallah. Check those classes out so you can get some edification on different topics pertaining to scripture, spiritual upliftment, and understanding on the law. And here we are dealing with a doctrine that says that Israelite men can have Israelite women as concubines. And here we are in the scriptures getting ready to show that those concubines were not of the same nation. They were typically slaves. Okay. 2 Samuel 5 and 12. Go ahead and bring that up.
This is the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 5, verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
And David perceived that the Yahweh had established him king over Israel,
mm-hmm.
and that he had exalted his kingdom for his people,
mm-hmm.
Israel's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem,
mm-hmm.
after he was come from Hebron.
After he was come from where?
Hebron.
Hebron. Read on.
And there were yet sons and daughters born to David.
Now, when you take a look at the history of King David, you can see that he came from different lands. He traveled from different lands. Okay. Now I want to talk about these so-called concubines that are being described here that are coming out of Hebron. Okay. Hebron. I want to say Hebron. Okay. Let's go to Joshua chapter 10, verse 1. Because what you got to understand when you read in the scriptures is there's a timeline when Israel came into rulership. Okay, Israel had to go to war. Israel came out of the wilderness and went to war. Okay, and this is what we're getting an understanding on, especially pertaining to this doctrine. Okay, let's go ahead and bring that out. Joshua 10 and 1.
This is the book of Joshua, chapter 10, verse 1. Now it came to pass when Adonizedek,
mm-hmm.
king of Jerusalem.
King of who?
King of Jerusalem.
So Adonizedek, he was king of Jerusalem at the time. Okay. Was he an Israelite? No, because Joshua and them, we hadn't even gotten into Jerusalem yet. Okay. Read.
I'm going to start from the top. Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai,
mm-hmm.
and had utterly destroyed it,
mm-hmm.
as he had done to Jericho and her king.
So he heard about what Joshua and them did to Jericho, okay, and how they destroyed it, demolished it, and took over it. Read.
So he had done to Ai and her king,
mm-hmm.
and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them.
So those people that were inhabitants of Gibeon made peace with the Israelites. I mean, why wouldn't you? You were defeated, put your weapons down, you either die or look, you just do what we tell you to do, right? Mm-hmm. Just get along with us, all right? Just cool out. We'll work together. Read on.
Verse 2. that they feared greatly because Gibeon was a great city.
They were scared because they're like, how did they take over Gibeon? So everybody was scared now. Read.
As one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Wherefore, Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron.
This is the land, one of the lands that King David came out of. Okay. And here we're reading about that particular king. But when we read in 2 Samuel, David was the king of Hebron, right? Read.
And unto Piram, king of Jarmuth, and unto Japhia, king of Lachish, and unto Debar, king of Eglon, saying, come up unto me and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore, the 5 kings of the Amorites.
Of the what?
Amorites.
Of the Amorites. You see that? That's a whole different nation. Those aren't Israelites. Read.
The king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon.
These are all Amorites. These are not Israelites. All of these people in these lands were there before Israel. Okay, read.
Gathered themselves together and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it.
Okay, so before Israel became a nation, Joshua, remember the Most High said that you're going to destroy 5 nations greater than you. He had to destroy those kingdoms, and those people that were destroyed were conquered people, and the women were taken as concubines. That's the way that worked. Okay, let's get 2 Chronicles chapter 11. 2 Chronicles chapter 11. Okay, because I didn't just take that. If you notice, I'm not just taking that scripture, connecting the dots in Joshua, and then that's the doctrine. We're going to see another example. Okay, read what you got.
This is the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 11, verse 18. And Rehoboam. It's like it. Rehoboam took him Mahalath, the daughter of Jerimoth, the son of David, to wife. And Abihail, the daughter of Eliab, the son of Jesse, which bare him children, Jeush, and Shemariah, and Zaham, and after her he took Ma'achah, the daughter of Absalom, which bare him Abijah, and Attai, and Ziza, and Shelomith. And Rehoboam loved Ma'achah, the daughter of Absalom, above all his wives and his concubines. For he took 18 wives.
He took what?
18 wives.
Read.
And 60 concubines.
So he had 18 wives and 30 concubines. Go ahead.
And begat 28 sons and 60 daughters.
So what you notice here with King Rehoboam, that his wives have a clear-cut, definitive lineage from Israelites. Okay, you can trace all of these Israelites back, and they're descendants of Israelites. Okay, the concubines derived from a certain land that was conquered. Okay, now this is consistent through the scriptures. All right, now we're going to talk about an Israelite who is in the same position. Does anybody know who I'm going to? Not you. Anybody? Can y'all guess? No? Let's go to the book of Esther. Let's go to the book of Esther. And how many people actually knew that Queen Esther, before she became a queen, was a slave. How many people knew that? Did you know it? Did you know it? Think you heard of it? Okay. Let's read about it. Let's get Esther, the book of Esther, chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 11. Okay.
This is the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her.
So he was concerned. Mordecai was concerned about what was going to happen to her. All right. This is the beginning of it. Read on.
Verse 12. Now, when every maid turn was come to go, and
take your time. Read that again.
Now, when every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women.
So every woman, every maid had a turn to go into the king and after 12 months. And this was according to their fashion. Okay, go ahead.
For so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women.
Stop right there. So why did there have to be a time of purification? Because they were in captivity. They didn't follow the same customs that that these Midianites follow. And for the record, Midianites, no, these Medes, not Midianites, these Medes were actually Japhetic people. That's another lesson. But these Medes that are mentioned in the book of Esther are Japhetic people. They're people of color. All right. We got another lesson on that. If you're confused, send a message in the link, and we'll get you we'll get you squared away. All right. So we're talking about this time of purification of this so-called king. There had to be a certain time period that they had to be purified. All right. Read on.
Verse 13. And thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubine.
Which kept the what?
Concubine.
She
came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name.
So if they pleased the king, when all these women went in, they would get a chance to come back to the king. If they didn't please the king, they wouldn't see the king no more. They would just stay in this particular house with this chamberlain, or this woman that kept the concubines. They would stay there. Okay. Now, if you see that, you got to understand that time of purification and the keeper of the women, because again, they were slaves first. All right. And she became queen because the Most High put the spirit on this particular king to want to marry her and exalt her as queen. So she would actually be a huge instrumental figure in saving our nation from genocide. Read the book of Esther and you'll kind of learn where Purim comes from, or Purim. People call it Purim or Purim. Now, I'm going to be honest in this closing, okay? And sisters, a lot of you may not want to hear this. And, you know, I know a lot of our women, the daughters of Zion, have a problem with plural marriage, or a man having more than one wife. A lot of them fight against the facts. They lie on the book. They just hate the thought of the conversation. And I mean hate it. And I will will openly say that I'll die alone. But that's a whole different topic. But brethren, as the kings and the priests of this earth, what we can't do is take one concept, create a whole doctrine out of it, and to put our women back in bondage as concubines. Okay? Learn the history of what you read about during this time of Esther. She was a slave first before she became a king, and she was described as a concubine because she was not a Mede. She was an Israelite. She was a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? We just can't do that. Okay? And if you're going to court a daughter of Zion, you know, to make her your wife, you know, make sure you're doing this to make her your wife. Because see, when you walk around and you see these Negroes with Caucasian women, okay, the Negroes are actually the concubines. They're actually the so-called mandingos that the white women used to take back in the day to have sex with and have children with during slavery. And then guess what? The Negro will be the one put to death as soon as the baby came out, okay, when the so-called white man saw that. And it's the same with so-called black women that are with Caucasians, comfort girls, bed wenches, whatever you want to call them. When you see them walking around with the Caucasian men, it's because they're the concubines. Okay, we have to be better with our scholarship when it comes to the scriptures and be a light to the Gentiles. Now, I'm not talking about being a light to the so-called white man, the so-called Chinese man. I'm talking about the people that don't know who they are, those Gentiles. We got to be a light to them. We got to show them that what the Most High has ordained is authentic and righteous. And coming up with some of these doctrines just ain't gonna get it. Okay. Y'all got any questions in closing this? No? I don't have any questions online. Okay. Dazella Brown, please explain. Okay, what question do you have, sis? I see that you posted that you had a question. If you can type that in there, and I don't know if that has to do with the comment that I made about the Medes regarding Japhetic people. I don't know if that's what you mean, or if you had a different question. I'll give you a couple of a few seconds to kind of type that up there. If we have any questions in the chat, please go ahead and put them up regarding the topic. Oh, the Medes. Okay, yeah, I kind of figured that. Basically, when you read about the Medes, the Persians and Medes were actually Japhetic people. We have a whole class on that, and what we'll do is we'll make sure and post. I believe we can post the link. Yeah, I believe we can post the link on the Facebook. The Facebook link. I think you're on Facebook. No, you're on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, she's on YouTube. So what we'll do, sis, we'll post a link of that class in the WhatsApp. I'll go ahead and do that. And I don't know if any of the second officers are on, but the 10-part series that we did on nationality and citizenship. I think we did 2 parts on the Medes, going into the history of the Medes, going back to being Japhetic people. And when you hear about Japhet, we're basically talking about one of the sons of Noah, Japhet, Ham, and Shem. Okay, the Medes actually derived from Japhet. Okay, not from Ham and not from Shem. They weren't Shemites, they weren't Hamites, they were Japhites. Okay, but I'll definitely make sure and post that. I'll go back and get that class and see if we can't post that in the WhatsApp of the group. I don't know if we have any other questions. Does anybody else see any questions? I don't see any other questions. Praises. So, you got any questions? Okay. I want to thank my young lion, Keno RA, for helping me in the class today. I want to thank everybody for joining us today on our Shabbat class, dealing with this lesson and this particular doctrine. As always, I want to give a shout out to the 12 tribes of Israel scattered abroad. I want to give double honors to the elders and messengers of the covenant. I want to give a shout out to all my brothers and sisters here with Kingdom of Israel. And I want to give all honor, power, and glory to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah. And with that, say shalom.